Hello and welcome to the Young, Textless, and Reformed podcast. I'm your host, Taylor DeSoto. In this episode, I wanted to give an overview of what I'm exactly doing here. So, the Young, Textless, and Reformed is a play on the phrase the young, restless, and reformed, which is kind of when I came to Christ. I was thrown right into this young, restless, and reformed movement with Mark Driscoll and Matt Chandler and John Piper and John MacArthur and Paul Washer and all these, bringing people back to the Reformed tradition. And I got thrown right into it. And along with Calvinism, you also get modern textual criticism. It sort of goes hand in hand for some reason these days. The first couple years I was a Christian, I heard a sermon by John Piper talking about how the pericope adulterae, the woman caught in adultery, was not scripture. I heard lectures or sermons by John MacArthur about why the ending of Mark shouldn't be there. And you go down the list, and it seems like the Calvinists are the ones that have adopted this critical text onlyism, if you will, where whatever the scholars say, it just gets right into your study Bible, right into your footnotes, right into your sermons, and there's really no filter through which these otherwise, at the time, otherwise solid, that I thought pastors were thinking clearly on these issues. And as I went through my process of starting with the NIV, moving to the NKJV, then the HCSB, then the NASB, and then ultimately the ESV for a number of years, I realized that something was just not right. And the longer ending of Mark for me was really the variant that did it for me, that discredited the entire, not just the entire modern critical text, but also the validity of what the modern textual scholars were saying. See, if they could be wrong, so wrong, about something as easy as the ending of Mark, what else could they be wrong about? And it turns out when you lift that rock, they are wrong about nearly everything. And that's at least my perspective on it. So the purpose of my blog, the purpose of this podcast, is to bring awareness to what's actually going on, what the scholars are actually saying, and of course, how doctrines are affected, how our theological understanding of Scripture is changed and retooled for modern means and modern men. And if you see the proliferation of false doctrines in 2021, what seems to be increasing tempo with which otherwise conservative denominations are adopting extremely liberal theological lenses, I can't help but wonder, could this be an issue with the fact that nobody trusts Scripture anymore? And I suspect that's the case, and that's one of the things that I set out to demonstrate on my blog and on my podcast. So with that being said, to give you a little bit of context of what I'm doing here, of why I started this blog, I guess I'll answer that directly. I started this blog, this YouTube channel, I initially started this YouTube channel to combat culture and stuff that's already being done, so I moved it to a textual criticism blog. But anyway, the reason I do what I do is because I think the average Christian, if they understood what exactly was going on behind the curtains, they would reject modern textual criticism so fast, it would be staggering. If you could just see what these scholars are saying and what they actually mean and what they believe about the text of Holy Scripture, I can't help but think that the average conservative Christian would reject it outright, condemn it outright, and chase men like Dan Wallace out of the academy, out of the seminary, out of your churches. So with that being said, I just want to give a little bit of an overview of what I've got going on my blog. You have a homepage which gives an overview of the discussion. I have what the received text position is, which includes the which TR question answered, the modern critical text position, why the King James, why do TR advocates read the King James, what's so special about it. I have posts, which are my 250 some thousand words worth of blog posts if you wish to sift through it at this point, and then resources about me and my Patreon, which is gets access to people for exclusive content. You can ask me direct questions. You support the effort of me maintaining my equipment, buying new books to stay up to date, and the ultimate goal is to hire an editor for my books, which I actually have someone that volunteered to edit my second book, which I'm very grateful for. But there's a number of things that I want to accomplish that a Patreon will help me out with, but I obviously don't push my Patreon all that much, which people tell me I should, but I really don't care too much. So if you'd like to become a patron, that's great. But I don't actually plan to really do too much advertising on my Patreon other than this little blurb. So with that being said, thank you for checking out this introductory overview video of the Young, Textless, and Reformed. I'm your host, Taylor DeSoto. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and we will see you all in a future video, in a future post. Thank you.